Namaste. Welcome to the penultimate day of the one-month-long Oneness Festival on Adi Śankarācārya, organized by the Advaita Academy. Today we have a live talk by on Mahābhārata and the philosophical hermeneutics of Śankarācārya, and a video talk by K.S. Maheshwaran in Sanskrit on Sutra Prasthana Samarthana, establishing the importance of Brahmasutra and its bhashya. You can post your questions on the first talk in the chat box, and we will take them up at the end of the session. I would now like to introduce the first speaker. Vishwa P. Adluri is a professor in the philosophy department at Hunter College, New York, and the author of over 30 articles and essays on the Mahābhārata. His work mainly focuses on the reception of ancient thought, both Greek and Indian, in modernity. He is the author of Hermeneutics, Plato and Moral Philosophy, Return from Transcendence, The Nay Science, A History of German Indology, and Philology and Criticism, A Guide to Mahābhārata. And he has edited numerous volumes on Mahābhārata and Greek philosophy and religion. Vishwaji has a PhD in ancient Greek philosophy and 20th century German philosophy from the New York's New School for Social Research, New York, a PhD in Indology from Phillips University, Marburg, and a PhD in Sanskrit from Deccan College, Pune. He has also completed translations from German and from Sanskrit to English. Those of us who have heard his talks in Mahābhārata know what a wonderful speaker he is and how we have all been, we have all benefited from his talk. And I welcome Adluri ji to the session.
Namaste. Thank you, Anuradha, for that very nice introduction. I thank Indic Academy, especially Harikiran, for organizing this and giving a forum for all of us younger generation scholars to explore new methods in studying Advaita and Sanskrit texts. I thank also Nitin for chasing me down and making this possible. I appreciate it, Nitin. And I also want to thank my colleague and friend, Joydeep Bagchi, for giving me a lot of inspiration for doing this work and holding me up to the highest standards. So today I want to I have a PowerPoint and I have a paper, but I'm not going to read the paper. I'll just post the paper. As far as the PowerPoint is concerned, I will just look at it once in a while to get you all on board. But mainly I want to begin right away with one story from the Mahābhārata. This is from the Adi Parvan, the first of 18 Parvans of the Mahābhārata. And this is the story of a group of birds called the Shanga birds. It's a very domestic tale. And it is set towards the end of Adi Parvan in a kind of a conflagration. There's a big forest fire going on. It's called the Khandava forest, and it is burning down. And this group of birds are a small family that happen to survive. Now I've focused on the story of birds and also on the Adi Parvan because I am trying to look for ways to think beyond the Mahābhārata, either as Western scholarship has looked at it, which is a text of history and reflective of the socio-economic and political circumstances in which the text was composed. Nor do I want to look at it simply as a parable for Advaitic wisdom meant for children. So in both cases, what we lose is the enormous literary, poetic, imaginative, and pure philosophical thought that goes into the composition of this epic. Few remarks about the text. We can set our text historical methods aside now because there is a critical edition, and Joydeep and I have gone over all the text historical considerations, even past the critical edition, they hold no water. So the critical edition that Suktankar has created is a pretty robust text. It does not lose any material. Everything is organized in the critical apparatus and in the appendices. So this, for the first time now, with great confidence, we can read the Mahābhārata as a whole. And what we find is that the Adi Parvan is, usually it was thought to be a late edition, etc. Not so. It contains the very principles of interpretation, hermeneutics, if you will, in that text. Reading the Adi Parvan carefully prepares us to understand Mahābhārata as a whole. If everybody could mute, it would be a little bit easier on me. All right, so let us look at the Mahābhārata Adi Parvan. The Adi Parvan begins with the very origins of the epic, origins of the universe, if you will. There is a brief discussion between the bard, Lomaharshana's son, Ugrasravas, and Shaunaka about Bhrigus. But shortly after that, there is a complete cosmology beginning with the Brahmanda and how different beings have come and how the universe has evolved. The Mahābhārata's Adi Parvan ends in a literary pralaya, in that the description is one of the end of the eon. The Khandava forest has to be burnt down. Agni will no longer offer sacrifices and carry them to the other gods, Indra especially. And there is no more communication between Indra and Agni. So the sacrificial order that keeps this universe going is breaking down. It is a pralaya in which Agni is intent on burning down all the beings in the forest. So it is not a literal pralaya, but I think that we've gone beyond the silly 19th century view of taking everything in an epic literally, and appreciate that on a literary level this is a pralaya. Caught in this pralaya is a family story. The story is about a bird called Mandapala. It's a Sharanga bird, and his family. Now, Sharangas are known from the Rig Veda. They may be poets, and I think Indrajit Bandyopadhyaya wrote something on this. So if anyone's interested, they can look that up. But that is not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in what role that story is playing. So first, I want to introduce you to the story itself. And here I would like to share a few screens. I'll try to keep the PowerPoints to a minimum. So here you go. Slideshow from the beginning. Here you go. So the Saranga narrative occupies 5 adhyayas, actually 6, 220 to 225 in the critical edition. These are also the last chapters of the Adi Parvan. After hearing that Agni in the form of forest fire did not burn 6 beings, the snake Ashwasena, who's the son of Takshaka, the Danava Maya, who builds the Maya Sabha, and the 6 Saranga birds. Janamejaya specifically asks why these birds did not perish. So who are the Sarangas? Actually, the Sarangas are story centers around a rishi called Mandapala, who performs the Urdhvareta tapas, which is a tapas of great difficulty, celibacy, and self-control, where one draws up and holds one's semen. But he fails to attain the lokas after his death because he has no sons. So you know what Mandapala does? He thinks that, okay, if suns is what it's gonna take me to get to heaven, let me become a bird, because that's the birds breed very quickly. They have plentiful children. This is already a mockery of the breeder paradigm that underlies Pravriti. So he goes and marries a bird called Jarita, and he has 4 sons with Jarita. But after having 4 children on Jarita, he gets tired of Jarita and leaves her and wanders the forest with another bird called Lapita. And when Agni comes to consume Khandava forest, Mandapala is out gallivanting with Lapita. He gets afraid that his sons might die and he might lose the lokas. So he prays to Agni with Rigvedic hymns, and Agni says, okay, I will spare your sons. This is one of the great literary feats that Mahābhārata can pull off in the middle of a conflagration, which is necessarily horrific. And beings are screaming and running and burning, and Krishna and Arjuna in the form of Narayana are fending off Indra, who's trying to protect the forest, etc. Just this little vignette of absolute humor and irony, right? I mean, even to this day, the world is burning, but we worry more about what's on our WhatsApp and what's on our tweets. So it's a remarkable view of the human comedy in the middle of cosmic tragedy. The Mahabharata can pull these scenes off very well. And then the second thing is just the names, right? Jarita means one who is old or old age. And Lapita means one who is much talked about, like Kim Kardashian, and also much talkative, uh, like Kim Kardashian. So this is the story here. But for our purposes, let us continue, after having noticed that this is not a story made up for children or so. We will plow along and see what comes up next. So he is barred from attaining his lokas because of this Mimamsa view, which is that only when you pray the 3 deaths, Devarina, Rishirina, and Pitrarina, you can go to heaven. And the Pitrarina is fulfilled by having children. And since he did not have children, he cannot go. And here are the 4 Saranga birds. As the forest fire comes, Mandapala is gone with Lapita. Jarita is lamenting and fluttering about, saying, how can I save you, little hatchlings? You have no feathers. You cannot fly. The fire is coming. Surely we will all perish, etc. So she tells them to hide in a rat hole. These little birds are also rishis. So they say, what? Go into a rat hole? There's a rat in there? And better to die a heroic death in the fire than to be eaten alive by that carnivorous animal. Jarita says, no, 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 no. The rat came out a little while ago, and a kite came and ate the rat. It is safe. So these little Weisenheimers say, no, no, we don't know. There could be other rats, etc. And finally, Jarita has to abandon her children and fly away. The poor Jarita is screaming, but she leaves. But again, what the Mahabharata reveals here is the continual fire that consumes all beings. And this is a foretaste of a different apocalyptic situation that will be revealed to Arjuna in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita, whereas Kalagni or Kala himself Narayana appears as the Vishwarupa and declares that he has come to annihilate all lokas and beings. Meanwhile, the four sons, they have Vedic knowledge, and so using again Rig Vedic hymns, which they might have inherited from their father, they pray to Agni, and out of a combination of the father Mandapala's prayers and these four little chicks' prayers, Agni will not touch them. Agni recognizes one of these sons as Drona and says, "You are the Rishi Drona, and tell me, what boon do you want from me?" And these little chicks says, "The cat is our enemy, kill the cat." So the fire destroys the cat and moves on. Meanwhile, Mandapala worries about having left Jarita and his sons, especially his sons. And when Lapita sees that that Mandapala is more worried about his ex-wife and his sons, she tells him to just get lost. So Mandapala now comes back to Jarita, and nobody talks. The four sons don't talk to him, and Jarita does not talk to him. And Mandapala tells him the story, tells his wife the story of Arundhati, and somehow the family is reconciled. Jarita and Mandapala take their four children, including Drona, and fly away to a different country. Okay, so let us compare the Mahābhārata as a whole to book 9 of, or chapter 9 of Manu. And here are the topics in order from Manu. Guarding the wife, these are Manu's rules in Manu Dharma Shastra. Elevation of wife to husband status, importance of wife, to whom belongs a son, niyoga, contract of betrothal, absence of husband, repudiation of wife, seniority among wives, and marriages of daughters. And the list continues. Primogeniture, how the oldest son should get the property and who is the older, and if that doesn't work out, how should there be partition based on seniority? What is the seniority of sons born of niyoga? Seniority among sons of different wives. What is a putrika? So if a man does not have a son, he can raise a daughter as a son. How to adopt son? What are niyoga sons? Sons by wives of different castes. For example, Dhritarashtra has a son by a Vaishya woman who's called Yuyutsu. And Vyasa has a son by a Shudra woman who's called Vidura. What are the types of sons? Who are the alternative heirs? Do women have property, and how does one get disqualified from inheritance? So if you look at it intertextually, these are the very themes the Mahābhārata is based on. So the Mahābhārata, rather than base itself on either a historical war or a kind of an Upanishadic wisdom that has been made into a story form for children, you see that there are important legal and dharma issues that actually help frame the story itself, that the story is driven, the events in the stories are collected and presented with a view to explicating dharma, moksha dharma, as well as other dharmas. But if you look at the story of Arundhati told by Mandapala and told by Manu, you will see something very striking. Here is what on the left side, this Mahābhārata is the lecture given by Mandapala when Jarita is upset with him for having cheated with Lapita. So Mandapala says, apart from another man, Nothing in the world is so fatal to women as rivalry with another wife. For even the faithful and good Arundhati, famous in all the worlds, distrusted Vasishtha, the eminent seer. Because of her contempt for Vasishtha, she is now a tiny star, like a red ember overlaid by smoke, not very lovely, sometimes visible, sometimes not, which appears like a bad omen. Manu tells the same story in the following way. When a wife unites with her husband, according to rule, she takes on the qualities he has, like a river unifying with the ocean. Akshamala Arundhati, a woman of the lowest birth, when she united with Vasishtha, as also Sharangi with Mandapala, became worthy of great respect. These and other women of low birth attained high status in this world by reason of the eminent qualities of their respective husbands. Focus here on how Arundhati has the highest status, and here Mandapala declares that Arundhati has the lowest status. Now, the Mandapala story and the Arundhati story told by Mandapala is completely made up because Arundhati is everywhere the symbol of an extremely good wife. Vasishtha is everywhere the symbol of a very good husband. So look how the Mahābhārata has taken materials, especially examples provided in Dharma texts, and it is recalibrating those stories for its own logic. It is up to us now to discover what that logic could be that guides the Mahābhārata. So furthermore, let us continue from the current slide. Yeah, so instead of doing comparative work with other texts at the same time, which did not give us the kind of results we wanted or explanations that were satisfactory, let us go back to the Mahābhārata, which provides this particular axiom here. It is called Itihasa Purana Bhyam Vedam Samupabhrahmayet, meaning with the help of Itihasa and Purana, the Veda should be upheld, interpreted, nourished. So what does that mean? It shows that the Mahābhārata as an Itihasa is aware of what its job is. Its job is to uphold the Veda. Does that really work in the Mandapala story? Let us see. But before we go further, I want to tell you what the Mahābhārata says about itself. It is telling you very clearly that it is not just a plain history. It is beginning with a cosmology. It has its various kinds of meters. It has various kinds of literary elements, etc. So it is a comprehensive Dharma text, Dharma Shastra, and a Moksha Shastra. It is joined to the 4 Vedas. It is Veda, Yoga, and Shastra. If you are wondering how it is Yoga and Shastra, you should only recollect that at the end of each Bhagavadgītā chapter, we say, Iti Bhagavadgītā Su, etc., where Yoga and Shastra are mentioned. And the Mahābhārata is conceived of as the Panchama Veda. Vyasa composes it after his work with the Veda. It is the support of the Veda, and it is Karshna Veda. Now, I've heard very stupid people say that Indians believe that Vyasa composed the Mahābhārata, and there cannot be, it is a childish thing to believe that one guy can compose all that. When Indians mean Vyasa, or the tradition means that Vyasa composed the Mahābhārata, it means these lines from the Mahābhārata. They're speaking with this evidence within a literary hermeneutic tradition. They're not making claims about external history, which is not the concern of this text. So in the future, you know, please don't say things like, did Vyasa compose Mahābhārata, etc. Those are very ignorant questions. Okay. The sages weigh the Mahābhārata against the 4 Vedas, and in every way the epic comes out heavier, weightier, mightier than them. And notice also that the Mahābhārata, according to itself, is an Upanishad which glorifies Krishna Vasudeva. Traditionally, what do Upanishads glorify? Brahman. So Saguna Brahman is the, if you take Lord Vasudeva as Saguna Brahman, the Mahābhārata is an Upanishad, and it equates Krishna, Lord Vasudeva, with Brahman as with these words, Shashvatam Brahma Paramam Dhruvam. Further, just like the Upanishads, Adhyatma is taught here, and the text reflects that highest self. Now, since Saguna Brahman is not Nirguna Brahman made into a story form by Amar Chitra Katha, so also the Mahābhārata is not an Upanishad where Nirguna Brahman is presented as if there is a figure called Krishna Vasudeva. As long as we live in this world of name and form which is created, it requires an Ishvara. That Ishvara is Saguna Brahman, Lord Narayana. Then, having said these things about the Mahābhārata's self-consciousness, notice that this is the textual tradition that we are supposed to interpret or place the Mahābhārata in, the Veda not created by Narayana, but nevertheless given to Brahma, and that same wisdom given by Krishna to Arjuna within the Mahābhārata. So you see how Vyasa has escaped. Where is Vyasa here? Vyasa is here editing these Vedas. Vyasa is here telling us about giving witness to the same wisdom. And Lord Vyasa is here because Śankarācārya does call the Gita Sarva Vedanta Shastra Sara Sangraha. So Śankarācārya himself is taught by Vyasa. So the ubiquity of Vyasa is another name for the logic of revelation that continues from the Veda into the Itihasa Purana. Now about sons, Śankarācārya, because this event is to glorify Śankarācārya, it is only upon reading Śankarācārya that we find out in his commentary from the Brahmasutra, Brihadaranyaka, he says, you know, what is this renunciation? Renunciation is literally to rise up. One second. In an opposite direction. Opposite direction to what? The desire for sons. Isn't that what Mandapala did? As a means to winning this world, thinking we will win this world through sons. And I'm skipping down. Every desire for means is a desire for results. Therefore, the text says that desire is one. How? That which is desire for sons is desire for wealth. Both are equally means to tangible results. And that which is desire for wealth is desire for worlds, for it is directed towards the results. So these are the Eshanas. Viteshana, Lokeshana, and Putreshana are the same Eshana. Okay, so Śankarācārya will now come and say, if we apply him to Mandapala's story, that somehow the Mandapala story is deeper, it is Upanishadic. How? Because, for example, Śankarācārya has commented on the Panchagni Vidya in the 5th Tripataka and Khandas 3 to 10 of Chandogya. It appears in Brihadaranyaka, it appears in the Kaushitaki, but you all know what the Panchagni Vidya is. For those of you who want a refresher on it, it is the story of a young Shvetaketu who goes to the Sabha of the Panchalas, and King Pravahana asks him these questions. How do you know where creatures go up to from here? Mandapala tried to, and he couldn't get in. How do you know they return here? He did return, but as a bird. Do you know where the path of the gods and ancestors, Devana and Pitriyana, part? Do you know why the world does not become filled? And do you know how water comes to be known by the word Purusha after the fifth oblation? So notice how the Mandapala story is a puzzle. It's not just a story set up as a story. It is actually an active thinking of the very kind of hermeneutic Śankarācārya would be interested in. Again, in the Bhagavadgītā, Vyasa himself points to the Chandogya passages by Krishna saying here, the scholars of Brahman who depart by fire, by sunshine, by day, this is the Shukla Paksha, and then the Krishna Paksha, and he says, listen, look at this last line, no yogin who knows these two roots is confused about them, Partha, therefore at all times be yoked to this wisdom. Isn't that amazing that we have here this wisdom or these questions that would have guided Mandapala? And instead, Mandapala becomes confused. Why? Because of desire. And that his desire is a problem is further elicited by his choice of first Jarita and then Lapita. I want you to know that these two paths continue. That Mandapala's mistake is to desire the world of the ancestors or Swarga or Pitrus. And this is repudiated not only by Śankarācārya. So you should not see Śankarācārya as some Advaita person who has come up with his ideology and he has set up his little shop. And, you know, but we who are interested in reading the Mahābhārata should set aside Shankara and approach it how? So this literary tradition is flowing in a certain way. You can understand which way it is flowing, but you cannot intervene in that tradition. You only make mistakes. Let me show you a few more slides on the integrity of this tradition. Here you go. In the Brihadaranyaka after the Panchagni Vidya and the Bhagavadgītā, Bhagavata also in the teaching by Kapila to Devahuti, these lines come up. A man who is strong in faith and devoted to the Devas and Pitris goes to the lunar sphere, and there is the southern path to the world of Aryama, known as Pitraloka. In Bhagavad-gītā 10, Krishna says, among the Pitras, I'm Aryama. The Brahmasutra also takes up this issue, and Śankarācārya discusses in detail Archiradhyadhikarana and Vavyadhikarana, which are in the fourth adhyaya, or the phala portion of the Brahmasutra Bhashya, especially these verses 4.3.1, 4.3.2, and 4.4 declares these two paths which Śankarācārya has clearly enunciated. Now, what is this whole against the path of the Pitras coming from? It is coming from the Mimamsaka view that the Putra is the Atman. You have taken birth from my limbs. This is in the Brihadaranyaka. It is in the Srimad Bhagavata, Atma Vai Putra Utpanna. It is also in the Mahābhārata when Draupadi crying when she sees Krishna for the first time in the Kamyaka forest after the gambling match. This happens in the Vana Parvan. She says, a plague on the strength of Bhimasena, a plague on the bowmanship of Partha. Both stood by Janardana while Charles manhandled me. Is it not the ancient way of dharma forever followed by the Shishta that husbands, however feeble, protect their wives? When the wife is protected, the children are protected. When children are protected, the soul, Atman, is. For the man himself is born in his wife, and that makes her a wife. The wife protects her husband. So there is this ongoing thing that in the Karma Kanda, there is this ongoing thing in Mimamsa. There's this ongoing thing even in the Laukika world where we think that through our children, we will gain immortality. Now, that is all very good, and it is a great consolation for us while we live this life, but when you want to think about this final salvation or liberation, this becomes a problem. So the Mahābhārata makes a huge deal out of saying, out of dismantling the putra relationship. And so fathers and sons just hack each other. Just to give you the Drona Parvan, here, Drona Parvan has 8 Upaparvans. In each one of these Parvans, for example, once Drona is consecrated, many people die. Then Abhimanyu is killed, who's Arjuna's son. Abhimanyu takes a vow to kill Jayadratha. Jayadratha is killed. Then Ghatotkacha is killed. And then by saying that by the story that Ashwatthama, Drona's son, is killed, Drona is also killed. So you just see how the whole Mahābhārata is complicating an easy relationship between fathers and sons with the view of liberation or moksha. Mandapala's story appearing in the Adi Parvan is already warning us or telling us what to look forward to. In fact, in another apocalyptic situation, which is the Kurukshetra battle, the 5 Pandavas will lose all their sons. It would have been totally lost had not Arjuna's grandson Parikshit been resurrected by Krishna. Just look at how the Mahābhārata has restructured that the Putra is the Atman thing. Look at this. Look, Arjuna is married to Subhadra, but Subhadra is Vasudeva's sister. So half of this is, let's just count the genes. This is not how the Mahābhārata does because it's a legal text. But if you go biologically, Abhimanyu is half Arjuna and half Vasudeva. Then when you come to Parikshit, Parikshit is fully resurrected by Krishna Vasudeva. So you notice how the Putra is substituted by the Purusha. And then Janamejaya himself is told the story by Krishna Dvaipayana. And who is Krishna Dvaipayana? He procreates all the characters in the Mahābhārata. And Krishna Dvaipayana and Krishna Vasudeva are said to be the same in the Moksha Dharma. So you see the Mahābhārata's systematic replacement of the doctrine of Purusha, the doctrine of Putra with the doctrine of Purusha. Now, Mandapala is definitely a fool because we see the definition of Manda coming. I did not share this slide, did I? this is an important slide. Let me share it. See, this is how the Putra becomes Purusha. Arjuna, Subhadra, Vasudeva's sister, Abhimanyu, half-half, Parikshit, fully Purusha. Then Krishna Dvaipayana takes over and makes the whole thing a doctrine of Purusha rather than of Putra, because Krishna Dvaipayana is a niyogin. He's not a legal father. So now for the meaning of Manda, we go to Katha Upanishad, just as Śankarācārya would. Both the good and the gratifying, Shreyas Cha, Preyas Cha, present themselves to a man. The wise assesses them, notes their difference and chooses the wise assess them, note their difference and choose the good over the gratifying. But the fool, Manda, chooses the gratifying rather than what is beneficial. And the distinction between the fool and the wise is far apart and widely different are these two, avidya and what is known as vidya. I take Nachiketas as one yearning for knowledge. The many desires do not confound you. So in the Mandapala story, in the Nachiketa story, something opposite to what Mandapala story is happening. In Mandapala story, the father becomes a bird for the sake of a son, etc. But here, the wise father of Nachiketas already sends his son to be initiated by Yama. So this is how the Mahābhārata is now structured. This is my final screen. It is structured into pravritti and nivritti, and birds are used as a metaphor for Brahmanic or the paths of Brahman. The reason for choosing birds and snakes is as follows. They are both dvijas. Just as we human beings who are initiated are dvijas, twice born, birds and snakes are dvijas because they're born once as eggs and then they hatch out. So the dvijas have several paths open to them. One is through karmas to go to Svarga. This is the option that was Vedic, but that is now replaced. But if you go to Brahmaloka, beyond, which is beyond Svarga, at the end of the eon, you get absorbed along with Brahmadeva or Saguna Brahman into Nivritti, or like Garuda, who is before just as the Adi Parvan ends with the story of the Saranga birds, it also begins with Garuda. It is Prajapati Kashyapa, who's one of the first Prajapatis, has Garuda as his son. But for the rest of us, if we read the Mahābhārata as Moksha Dharma text, at the end of Shanti Parvan, we will get sufficient Vairagya, having listened to Krishna in the Bhishma Parvan and learn to live according to Karma Yoga, and in the Moksha Dharma Parvan, having gained Bhakti and Jnana, like Shuka, we can exit the text. If we do not exit the text, we will have to repeat the Mahābhārata cycle, and the Mahābhārata textual cycle is the repetition of the Yuga cycles as well. So this is the path to Pitraloka, and here the four sons and the two parents of the Saranga birds go away. So one final remark. One of the sons is called Drona, and by whose merit Mandapala wins. Survives and wins the Pitralokas. This same name, Drona, is associated with another complicated obverse relationship to the son, where because of his son, Ashwatthama, and by counting on Ashwatthama, Drona is misled, deluded, and brings death upon himself. So the Mahābhārata has not forgotten. So even in this Mandapala story, the name Drona is something the text has in its view throughout, and it will work its deadly logic to the end. So to that Purusha, salutations, and that was my paper. I can take questions now.
Thank you very much for this wonderful session, and by telling us that these are not just simple tales of birds and animals, but very well it is mapping out the pravritti and the nivritti margas of human life. Wonderful.
And that's why I've always, when I was a kid, I always used to read Mahābhārata stories, and I used to be entranced in those stories. There was something deep that I could not fathom. Whereas when I read Panchatantra and Aesop's fables, there, the whole story is crafted to say that moral, you know. So it seemed, even to me as a child, very contrived. So the depth, so my whole life I was thinking there is a difference between the kinds of stories that are Aesop's fables and Panchatantra and the kind of stories that are Itihasa Purana. And guess what? When I read Śankarācārya, I found that the difference is that Brahman and that praxis and that textual tradition and that self-consciousness that is all-encompassing, radiant, and that joins a whole tradition together. Something a Panchatantra or a Jataka story cannot do.
There is a Mahābhārata Tatparya Nirnaya by Madhvacharya. And there are some Vyakyanas, commentaries on Mahābhārata, but I don't think there is any specific Advaita commentary on Mahābhārata, and it has been waiting for you, Professor Adluri.
No, actually, it has been done by Namaste Nagraji. There have been very wonderful commentaries, not full, but they are worth translating. Deva Bodha has one translation, one commentary. Nilakanta has a wonderful commentary. Just to tell you what a serious commentator Nilakanta is. I know that people think, oh, he makes everything Advaitic, blah, blah, blah. When you read his commentary on Mandapala story, he does not convert it into an Advaitic mode. He keeps the Karma Kanda quite, yeah, that register he maintains, the Karma Kanda register, just as Krishna also maintains the Karma Kanda register, but he says, oh, that could be a mistake. I had a student and a colleague called, Janavi, and she did some work on the commentators as well. But of course, the best source for commentators is our book, Philology and Criticism, where we've collected all the commentators. So the next generation can very easily go and do those translations, which are very important.
There's one question, which is like, how do we differentiate between Putra and Purusha in the Mahābhārata context? There's one question that has come from you.
Yeah, so the genealogical Vamsha relations will designate the Putra, but the Brahmavada will designate the Purusha. So just as and what the Mahābhārata does is continuously problematize the Vamsha, the survival of the Vamsha, in order to edge us into considering the Brahmavada, the Purusha alternative.
Okay. So
are there any questions in the chat? 18 comments. Must I look through them, or will you can ask them? You can ask me, Anuradha. That would be easier for me.
Yeah, and then this is a question from one of the chat boxes.
Hey Vishwa, you promised me long back that you will do a commentary. I think it's time for you to publicly announce that yes, you're going to do it. Come on, do it.
By my publicly announcing. it won't get done. By not announcing it won't get done. It will not get done. I'm working on it. As you can see, I have commented on the Amba Upakhyana already. I have commented on Garuda. I've commented on this. A commentary on the Narayaniya portion is already written and done. Here it is. So the translation. The comment, there is no need for me to write a commentary on the Bhagavad-gītā because Śankarācārya's commentary is sufficient for that. There's no need for me to write a commentary on Vishnu Sahasranama or Sanat Sujatiya. Śankarācārya has already done it. But especially in these literary akhyana things, Joy and I are working to do that because Joy is also interested in looking at the Mahābhārata from the recent literary theory insights, and the Mahābhārata seems to give more fruit when applied to that as well, you know. Yeah. So, and it is not so simple as just to simply write a bhashya, just to say something and just to connect it to Upanishads. I'm also engaged in other methods, for a critique of methods, which is necessary. For example, one can easily see the Mandapala story and just come up with the conclusion, it clearly shows that guys are jerks, or it clearly shows that women's status was not so great. Well, we are talking about birds now, right? So we've crossed the species, and why are we keeping gender distinctions? So, since postmodernism and the issue of analyzing everything according to identities rather than investigating everything according to ideas has become a little problematic. So a battle on methods is more primary, and Hari, that's the battle I have been fighting.
I also want to tell you that Yogini from Indic Today, she reached out a few days back, and so she's saying, why don't we do a webinar on Mahābhārata? And we were just discussing it, and we want to do something, not discussing the dates, and we want to discuss we want to celebrate Mahābhārata and celebrate the literary the beauty of Mahābhārata. So we will be shortly reaching out to you and discussing some of the ideas.
Perfect. We should do it just in time for the release of the new Mahābhārata movie. I cannot tell you how I'm waiting for it. I mean, I'm just a sucker for the Mahābhārata. I mean, you know, anywhere anybody tells me a Mahābhārata story, anywhere on a temple there's a carving that has a Mahābhārata episode on it, I just go wild.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Anuradha ji?
There's just one more question. I mean, in the other literary works in the Mahābhārata, is the same conflict highlighted even there between the world of the Pitrus and moksha? Is that also the...
Right. So that is the central teaching in the Devahuti Kapila Samvada, which comes in the third skanda of the Mahābhārata. And in the Narayaniya portion of the Mahābhārata itself, the lines are drawn very clearly. We must offer pindas, or we must offer shraddha to ancestors. That has to be done for all grahasthas. But ultimately, one should go on the path of worshipping the Saguna Brahman and Purusha. What is so great about the Mahābhārata is that its pedagogical program has been completely successful. All of us want to go to either Vaikuntha or Saketa or some Saguna Brahma Loka. None of us wants to go to the Pitra Loka and sit with our crusty old grandfathers, father-in-laws.
May I jump in with a question?
Yes, Raj. Oh, this is Joydeep Bakshi. He's the great scholar of the next generation. So yeah, go ahead.
What is the image of a good father in the Mahābhārata? Because starting with Yaya, takes his son's youth so he can enjoy the lokas.
Mm-hmm.
Pandu, who sort of abandons his children for excess sexual pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Shantanu, who, makes his son make a huge sacrifice so that he can go with the fisher woman's daughter, Satyavati.
Mm-hmm.
There seem to be only paradigms of failed fathers.
And failed progeny.
Yes. Is there a example, and even the 5 Pandavas, in a sense, for this, let us say, the loka of the kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
they end up losing all their children. So
Mm-hmm.
what is the paradigm of a good father? Is there a sort of...
That's very interesting. I never thought of that, but the closest that I would come to is Krishna being a father to Arjuna. That's about the closest I can come. A surrogate father, because ultimately the guru is also a father. And so in Indian tradition, and in many cases, the father, biological father himself, sends off the son to the guru, and the child dies as that man's son and is reborn by the Diksha. That's why he's called the twice born one, as the guru's son. So in a way, I think the best father-son thing is Vyasa, who gives birth to Shuka. He teaches Shuka and leads Shuka into moksha. So that I will see as the most successful thing. But in the case of Vyasa, engendering Shuka and engendering moksha are a joint project through the Mahābhārata.
So
Good question.
The good father is really the one who looks for the ultimate well-being of the son.
Right.
Rather than for his own pleasure.
Than for his own pleasure. So for example, in the Mandapala story, those 4 sons, he had no love for those 4 sons. They were instrumental for him to get to the lokas. They were just an afterthought, which is very sad. But this is something Yajnavalkya already tells Maitreyi in the Yajnavalkya Maitreyi Samvada of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where he says, Atma Vayare. So, you should know the Atman. Why? Because Atmanastu Kamaya, you have the putra, you love the putra, you love the wife, you love everything. And so why don't you love the Atman and be more honest about it? So this comes up also. Look, even in a story like Hiranyakashipu and Prahlada, right? The enmity between the father and the son, if you look at it one way, it is the sort of breakdown of that illusion of Prahlada being the salvation of Hiranyakashipu in a Pitraloka, which is the only loka that the Asuric Hiranyakashipu will recognize. But on the other hand, Prahlada has put the father aside for the Purusha. So the story is, once you start paying attention to it, it's an obsessive theme in all the Puranas.
Okay. Once again, thank you very much, Vishwaji, for this wonderful exposition on the Mahābhāratas. We truly discover gems through you, and we would like to have you once again at various sessions of Indic Academy. Thank you very much, Vishwaji and Joydeepji, this wonderful session.
Namaste.
We have another session. You can unmute yourself. You can mute yourself and perhaps listen to that. It's a video recording.
Thank you, Vishwa. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you so much.